Hey, you guys, I got a little bit of time, so I wanted to drop in and do another therapy session with you guys. I did one the other day. You're welcome to check that out. Um, Hold on a minute. I hope everybody's well. I'm trying to view something real quick. So the last therapy, the last therapy session, you guys, was about when you always want to see the good in others. So if that's something that you struggle with, I'll connect it to this video once it uploads. But the topic of this therapy session, you guys, is when you have a hard time trusting your feelings. And who's going to be susceptible to this? Well, if you have a history of abuse, low self esteem, a history of being betrayed a lot, a history of childhood trauma, basically childhood wounds that haven't been addressed. If you have a history of having abandonment issues, fears of rejection, if you have a history of struggling with loneliness, being bullied, um, if you have a history of depression, PTSD, and attachment disorders like codependency, you're definitely going to be prone for having a hard time trusting your feelings. So, welcome to the therapy session, you guys. Um, this is a good time to just be honest with yourself and have self awareness. These videos are being made to help people with their shadow work. And by doing that, I'll be giving you some things to think about and see what resonates with you in your experience, or, how not trusting your feelings has been playing out in your life, you know. So, with that being said, these videos are supposed to trigger you, but trigger you to be better, and trigger you along your path of doing the work so that you can get out of this energy, or, get out of that season, or graduate out of this, because it's not something that's supposed to be lingering, in your life. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And I did say this in my other video as far as the triggering part. I'm just going to tell you what, I feel you need to know about this. I'm going to list all the reasons of why people have issues with trusting their feelings. So again, I'm doing it out of love. All right. So when you have a hard time trusting your own feelings, you guys, it's going to definitely make it hard for you to make decisions, make good decisions. Let's insert that in there. Good decisions, authentic decisions. It's going to make it hard for you to trust your instincts, of course. It's definitely going to be challenging to make the most out of opportunities, to even see the opportunities for yourself. And even more importantly, it's going to make it hard for you to meet your needs, meeting your needs. That's your is the important word there. And oh, hey, Angel Network Ascension. How you doing, sweetie? And I'm going to have to, what I can do moving forward with the support groups, I'll announce it right before I go on it, and hopefully whoever sees it can jump in. I can do that. And since I am a little sporadic with my live chats, but I do always advise people to hit the bell so that they could be notified. But yeah, it's going to make it hard, you guys, to stay on your authentic path here at this point. So what's stemming behind that? Let's get into that. A lot of times people that never felt confirmed are people who have felt invalidated, or if you felt like you've always been told you're wrong. It's particularly stuff from childhood. If you've been gaslighted a lot, or trained not to value your thoughts and feelings. If you've been in a position where you feel like you've been a black sheep, or outcasted, or an oddball, Those type of things can disconnect people with their feelings, because as human beings, we want to feel like we're part of a collective, especially when we're going back to childhood and the family unit. So you're automatically being trained to disconnect from your feelings to be able to be accepted by the family, or to not be abused or continue to be abused by the family. Because no child wants to feel like the black sheep or the cast out or the oddball, especially in their emotionally immaturity and not knowing at that point that they're being abused and being able to connect those dots. So they're already imprinting on you before you've even been able to defend yourself. You're very vulnerable at that point. And that's why a lot of psychologists do talk about the first 5 years of a child's life and how a lot of those things are just imprinted on them forevermore. Unless you really dig down in your subconscious and get that shadow work done once it starts playing out in your adulthood. But yeah, not being confirmed and constantly being invalidated, especially stemming from childhood, is going to lead you to not trusting your feelings, or dealing with a really manipulative person in your adulthood that starts to plant that seed and water it a lot. Well, it's more like a weed at that point, but yeah, it's definitely being planted in your subconscious the more that you're subjecting yourself to interacting with that person. You're having your intelligence being questioned, you guys, is another one. Being told that you're not smart. This is something, of course, is going to connect to not trusting your feelings. Being trained to believe others over yourself. And and a lot of this is going to be interconnected. So if someone's invalidating you, chances are they're going to tell you what to think and feel. That's what's going to come after the invalidation. So it's all connected, you guys. So someone questioning your intelligence, and that leads to being told what to think, being trained to believe others over yourself. That's the gaslighting. So you've seen something, someone's telling you what you didn't see, or they're rewriting the story to protect themselves, to make themselves not be the abuser or bad guy. So experience that stuff is definitely going to make you out of touch with trusting your own feelings. Being trained to be quiet, to stay in the background. That's definitely teaching somebody to suppress their own feelings, ignore them even. Not feeling seen and heard. It all connects together. You're definitely going to have a disconnect with trusting your feelings at that point. Being trained to give your power away, being powerless and stripped. And again, a lot of this stemming back from childhood. And, there are toxic parents who feel like children shouldn't have powers. They should just do what adults say, no matter what the case. And that's definitely not going to be the way to, raise up a healthy, well-rounded child that can think for themselves and feel for themselves and be independent or interdependent in society versus codependent, right? So that child is being trained to constantly give their power away and feel powerless and stripped. So also growing up in an environment, you guys, where you're trained to put others before yourself. So you're not trusting your feelings if you're always thinking about other people's feelings first. So I'm not going to think about what's best for me. I'm thinking about what's best for someone else. And that's like my first automatic feelings. And this also can take place in situations where kids had to grow up fast or take on responsibilities, or even parent their parent, if they had a parent that was struggling with addiction, or just, irresponsible, emotionally stunted themselves. So yeah, definitely if you were trained to put others before yourself, that's going to create that disconnect with trusting your own feelings. And a lot of times, our experience are scoping us. So if you have a trail of poor decisions or you feel like you failed a lot of times, that's definitely going to lessen your confidence and feeling capable of being able to trust your feelings to make these decisions. If you feel like you've let yourself down too many times, you've chose wrong over and over, if you've been tricked or you've been bamboozled, all of this can make you feel incapable if you're not addressing those fails or those letdowns, if you're not taking the lessons and changing the behavior. If you felt like you haven't been able to see past the veil or see past people's masks enough, you think they're one thing and bam, they're another. And being hard on yourself for that and not doing, the appropriate psychological work and healing from those situations. Also, feeling disconnected from source could be an issue here. And that could be basically disrupting your intuition at that point. The little voice inside of you that wants to tell you not to do something, it becomes very quiet to hear. So you could have been religious and you could have backslid. And this isn't really about being religious. I'm just using that word because it's more of a unified understanding to when I'm talking about source. You don't have to be religious to be connected to source. But maybe you had a closer connection with source. You were praying more before you got into that relationship. You had a space for meditation. Or maybe you've never been connected to source, and that's something that you need to grow in your life. Never really sit in meditation to think about how do you feel and what's best for you. And this also could suggest a person that's too 3D focused. And when I say 3D, it's just so worldly. And this type of person is always focused on needing that hard evidence. So when they're getting a nudge, they're getting a feeling, they're getting an inkling about something, that's not good enough. You need more evidence. But a lot of times when these nudges are correct and you're needing more evidence, that means you're needing to experience more abuse, which is going to feel like you're failing again, which was the last one we were just talking about. And it's kind of perpetuating that feeling of you having the lack of confidence of being able to protect yourself and to trust your gut feelings to make a good decision for yourself, especially when we're talking about, identifying predators and manipulative people who aren't here to serve your higher good. All right. A lot of times when we're having issues with trusting our feelings, we've been trained to rush as well. Things like, let me think about it. Let me get back to you. I'll let you know. And actually considering your options is something that's not occurring at this point. Like somewhere along the line, someone told you, you need to do what I say and do it quickly or else, and then that relationship or that acceptance or avoiding the rejection or the backlash, that becomes more important than honoring, what you're feeling and what's best for you. All right. So along those lines, your no muscle may be too weak. Yeah, your no muscle may be too weak from being a yes person or being too agreeable or trying to avoid conflict. I made a video years ago about no, and I believe on this live chat, they'll let me tag 2 or 3 videos at the end. So I'll tag the no video on the end as well, where I kind of help people work through strengthening their no muscle and how to begin to get into that world. And it's, typically by saying things, let me think to you, let me think about it, let me get back to you. Like learning how to incorporate those phrases for those of you like, man, I can't, how am I gonna go from not saying no to no? We got to learn phrases that allow yourself the time and space to give you the strength to come back to say the no, at least, you know? But yeah, your no muscle may be too weak at that point. So not trusting your feelings, obviously, so far we're seeing how it leads into other things in your life that are probably needing to be recalibrated as well. All right. Now, this next one is a really big one here. When you have a hard time trusting your feelings, a lot of times it's too much imbalance going on within yourself. It's particularly emotionally, and particularly for people who have experienced trauma bonds and who are operating out of codependency or depression. You're going to be in an energy where it's emotions and feelings versus facts, because you're running off of toxic emotions and feelings that are tied to a trauma bond. And the trauma bond isn't you, but it's just something inside of you stemming off of a toxic relationship. So there's a difference. So now you're on like this emotional roller coaster and these constant shifts, and you're not knowing your front from your back. And the thing that I want to point out as well, you guys, with the codependency, when you're in a codependent energy, you're not really creating a space for yourself. The space that you're creating is all about your connection to an external source, you know, a person. So you're not even making a space where you're just considering yourself as an individual. And that's a really big danger of codependency. So I really wanted to point that out and why people really need to address the codependency. I mean, address it all for sure. So another thing, you guys, is definitely being out of touch with yourself. And I kind of sprinkled this a little bit, but the voice is harder to hear the less you're connected to yourself, or the less you're tapped into yourself. That's what I have to say. Because everywhere you go, you're still with yourself, whether you're tapping into yourself appropriately or not. Yeah. So what that means, or what I'm trying to say with that is, you're basically hearing the programs that other people have put inside of you over your own voice. It's just drowning the real you out, you know. It's pushing your voice down, and theirs, whatever those programmings are, they're leading the way for you in your life. And that's why when people start doing the shadow work and they have certain thoughts, they really are going to have to sit with them and consider, is this my thought, or is this somebody else's toxic thought that's been running through my mind? Because we have a lot of thoughts on a daily basis. I think they said like 75,000 thoughts. You know, they're not all yours, and they're not all something that you have to take and honor and make your truth or act on. So you have to become good at knowing which thoughts are really yours and for your higher good, and which ones are stemming from your abusive past or a manipulative person. Okay. And then learning how to reject it. And that's just going to require a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-reflection at that point. The next thing, you guys, stemming from being an emotional wreck kind of thing, is just not being rested, not being refreshed, having too much of a busy mind, never resetting yourself, never really feeling clear-minded and rejuvenated, you know, basically like running on empty, not filling your own cup type of thing. When you're in that type of state, who's going to make a good decision? Who's going to, like, everything is just running together. That's why it's important to rest for all of those people who don't know how to be still. That's why it's important to take time after you experience some type of trauma or abuse to be able to unpack it so that you can get to a healthy type of release. Like if you're just on a go, you're just not even making time to stop to really acknowledge anything. You're basically putting yourself in a survival type of mode, right? And we want to do more than survive. We want to be happy. We want to be fulfilled. We want to feel balanced and peaceful. And life isn't just about go, go, go anyway. I know American culture tends to push that, but find out how happy those people really are. Even the ones that seem to have reached this American success. See how happy they really are behind the scenes, you know? The next thing here, you guys, is basically confusing other people's feelings for your own. That something could definitely be going on here. And how can you trust your feelings when they're not even yours? You're not even like deciphering if it's my feelings. And if the other people are the abusive and manipulative people, that's really going to create a distrust for yourself, because it feels like you're just constantly self-harming yourself. You're always self-sabotaging because you're confusing, again, those programs, other people's feelings with your own. And that's why it's good to figure out what's your feelings. And that's the tricky part after growing up in a certain environment and now you're an adult and you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? You know, you spent your whole life where, yes, parents are supposed to program, but they're also supposed to leave an abundant amount of space for a child to discover who they actually are, to tap into their gifts and natural talents, not imposing who they want to force the child to be, like really getting to know the child, because children have their own personalities and children have feelings as well, you know. And while they could take some of a parent's behaviors and patterns through the DNA, they're going to be their own individuals as well. So confusing other people's feelings for your own, that could definitely be something that's happening. Now, the next one is a big one too. Being disconnected from your body. Yeah. And a lot of times sexual abuse, when you've been physically abused, those types of abuses make you more prone to be disconnected from your body, by the way. And when you don't handle that, that disconnect will continue in one form or another. But when it relates to trusting your feelings, that means when your body is giving you signals, your heart rate, your stomach, your goosebumps, your anxiety, you know, the ways that our body is starting to feel when it's getting close to another energy. Like, I didn't feel good, you know, just looking this person in the eye gave me the heebie-jeebies. You know what I mean? It didn't look kind. It didn't feel good. So having that disconnect from your body is something that may need to be addressed. And then when you get these feelings, you'll be able to honor them, or at least acknowledge them, to figure out what is this stemming from, and if it's something that should be something that needs to determine your feelings in that situation. All right. And now, having a hard time trusting your feelings can also obviously indicate emotional immaturity. Okay, a lack of understanding how emotions work. And of course, this is usually something that's stemming from the childhood yet again. And some type of emotional neglect is probably going on. So the good news is there's a lot of information out there. I'm a psychology junkie myself. You need to, engulf yourself in learning about the areas that will help your life be better as well. It'll pay you back 100-fold. So if you are a person that lacks emotional maturity, then you need to be learning as much as you can about emotional maturity. My channel is going to be a really good start for you. And then there's lots of other things you can learn as well. All right. Having an avoidant type of tendency, or avoidant tendencies, plural, that can be something as well, you guys. And that's just someone that wants to avoid conflict, rejection, abandonment, don't want to disrupt the status quo type of thing. You're going to have a hard time trusting your feelings when these avoidant tendencies are more important to you? So, what can you do to help in these situations? You're definitely going to have to learn how to sit with your feelings and be able to acknowledge them. Yeah, Bella Love says listening to her body has helped her a lot. Good. Yeah, we have to take all the signals, all the signals to help us. Like people think, shallowly communication is just verbally, and it's not. It's body language, it's eye contact, it's how your energy feels with someone else, it's what's not being said, what's being implicated. It's all types of things, you guys. And understanding that in our emotional maturity gives us the upper hand to, be stronger at reading a room and picking up on clues. But yeah, we're going to have to learn how to sit with our feelings, you guys, and being able to acknowledge them. And it's okay if you feel like, I don't want to do this all the time, compartmentalize it. You have a space and time in your life where you can address it. You know what? I feel this way. I'm going to come back to it later on this evening after work, but I need to get this task done really quick. As long as you're coming back to it and not years later, because that's not going to work. When you have the tendency to just let stuff sit dormant for years, that's when you have anxiety attack and panic attacks. That's your body's way. Sorry, you guys. I'm trying to release those emotions. So the next thing is you may have to ask yourself, what would you tell a friend? Because unfortunately, sometimes when we have a hard time trusting our feelings and all these things that I've gone over, we'll care for others more than we cared for ourselves at that point. So what would you tell a friend? Not even what would you tell yourself at that point? Because you might tell a friend to be safer and kinder, more gentle, and look out for themselves better than you would yourself. Mm-hmm. Another thing, when you're sitting with your feelings, you can self-reflect on, is this a reoccurring feeling? Have I felt like this before? And if I have, what was the situation? And when I reacted that way, what type of results did I yield? In this way, we can be picking up the patterns and of our behaviors and start intercepting ourselves from, repeating cycles and having the same, outcomes and feeling self-sabotaged again. Another thing that you're going to have to start doing is exploring what your actual options are. Because obviously there's an option outside of just do what I'm told, just be agreeable. You have other options. But if you don't even give yourself a chance to explore them, you're not going to start using them magically, right? Another thing to help along with this, you guys, is you may need to be reparenting yourself if needed, if that was the situation. Oftentimes it is. And that means, whatever your biological parent or caretaker wasn't able to give to you, you need to start giving that to yourself. So do you need to start being gentle with yourself? You need to start nourishing yourself. You need to protect yourself. You need to provide for yourself. You need to be the safe place for you. You need to have patience with yourself. You need to give yourself love and attention. You can do that. You can do that. Just because someone else isn't giving it to you or someone else didn't give it to you doesn't mean that you can't give it to yourself. You owe that to yourself. Because like I said, everywhere that you go, you're taking yourself, whether you're doing it in the best standings or not. You're dragging yourself with you, or you're taking yourself in the most comfortable way, And if anything, you should want to take that responsibility, especially if you've experienced so many people dropping the ball on you. It should encourage you and make you want to say, you know what? I don't want to give that responsibility. If anybody drops the ball on myself, I'd rather it be me at that point, because people, I can't put my trust in people like that. And I'm not teaching you to distrust people, but it's certain things that other people shouldn't be responsible for anyway. Your self-care, your self-love, your self-esteem, your self-worth, they all have the word self in front of it. You're not supposed to give that responsibility to other people's anyway. So it's just certain things that you're supposed to grab a hold of and do it like thankfully. Thank God I get to be in control of this, because I know if I'm doing it, I'm going to do all those things, be gentle, be a safe place, love myself, give myself attention, be patient, yada, yada, yada. Like, I know I can do that for myself. And when you're doing it for yourself sufficiently, you won't need someone else to fill your cup with that. So that's the beautiful thing about being able to do it for yourself. But if other people aren't doing it for you and you're not doing it for yourself, well, then that's the recipe for disaster right there. You've abandoned yourself, other people have abandoned you, and you're just existing. You're a shell existing. And that's not what you want. You need to honor your soul and your spirit and your essence, and whatever time God is giving you here on this planet, he's giving it here for you to grow and ascend, ascension, to rise up, not be a zombie, if you will. Okay. Now, on the last thing that I'm going to point out here, and I don't want to sound double-tongued here, but we've been spending this whole video talking about when you're having a hard time trusting your feelings. I'm going to be honest with you. There's times in your life when you shouldn't trust your feelings, and it's when you're kind of coming out of not trusting your feelings. Like, if you're running off of a trauma bond, your feelings are going to tell you to stay in a toxic situation. It's going to tell you to go back to what's familiar so that you can get that dopamine drop in your brain when the love bomb comes back around, for instance. So when you're like fighting addictions, and a trauma bond is an addiction, when you're fighting something like that, your feelings aren't going to be reliable. And that's why you have to run off of logic until your feelings can catch up with your logic, because your feelings are going to be entrenched in that addictive behavior or that addictive pattern, and it's not going to tell you what you need. That's just like, if I am overweight and I'm used to eating all these snacks, my feelings, I have an emotional connection to eating that junk food, at least initially, when I want to change my behaviors and eat more vegetables and fruits and incorporate, going to the gym more often. I may not feel like it. Or you might feel this motivation for one day, for 1 second, when the seed is planted. And then when it's time to actually put the actions into play, because it's not an existing pattern and behavior, and it is going to have some discomfort because you're going to tell yourself no to some old behaviors that's not serving you, your feelings may not be in agreement. But the good thing about the human body is we could push past stuff like that. But there's so many people who don't push past the feelings, and then they just stay in a toxic relationship. Or they have, we're creatures of habits. We don't like change as it is. And we don't like to be uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is when we actually break through to the next level of things when it comes to pretty much most things in life. You're going to have to be uncomfortable. You may feel, you may not have all your ducks in a row of knowing what's going to happen next, but I know that I'm not going to be like that anymore. So you can decide, you could check yourself. With self-awareness, you could say, okay, I know I'm feeling this way. I got to work on myself, but I know better. See, my feelings versus what I know. That's the feelings versus logic. I know, this person, I have a soul tie with them. The sex was amazing, but this person ain't shit, man. They are not shit for my life. And I don't care about those orgasms, aren't more important than all that other energy that ripples into my life because I'm still connected with this person. First of all, I'm not making space for a real genuine connection to come in my life. And oh my God, what if I accidentally get pregnant? Like, we're not trying, but what if this person give me something because they really for the streets? So, it's just a whole bunch of things. Like, so I felt like my body remembered the orgasm, but then I know this is not going to be good for me. And the sooner I can get over this, and that's why people are like, you know what? It ain't worth that nut. It ain't worth this. It ain't worth, you know what I mean? We'll know. We will know, you guys. So I hope that wasn't too raunchy, but I'm just trying to give real life examples here. And with that being said, you guys, this was a nice little therapy session. If you feel like you need to do deeper work, you can always re-listen to this, of course. And you can get into even more therapy, like continued therapy with someone, where it's one-on-one with you and you can get into your particular situation. I do offer life coaching, you guys. My website is lakiacrawford.com. It's been up for years. I've given coaching sessions to people on every continent. Happily so. I've helped a lot of people. All right. So if you want to do that personally with me, you can. I'm trying to get back to the chat. Oh, there it is. Oh, you're welcome, Bella Love. And I'm glad you were able to catch the live. All right. So before I end this therapy session, is there any questions that anybody have about, anything concerning with today's topic or their shadow work? If you have video topics or another type of therapy session that you would like for me to do with you guys, these are here to help trigger you into your shadow work. I try to think of as many things as I can to help you along the way of that, but it's a really good starting point. It's a good starting point. So going once. All right. And for anyone dropping in, this is going to, it'll upload so you can always come back. Reinforcement is your friend. You guys don't know. When I was doing heavy shadow work on certain things, I replayed certain videos like 50 times if I, a lot. Like I needed to hear it again and again and again. And sometimes that's necessary. Self-sabotage, a therapy session on self-sabotaging, Bella Love. Okay. All right. I'll put that on the list and start meditating on it. So be on the lookout for when I do that one. All right, you guys. It's always nice to come in and spend time with you all. And, just keep doing the work. You're never going to go wrong investing in yourself. All right. And with that being said, I love you guys, and I will definitely see you in the next live chat. Everybody take care and have a great day. And never give up on yourself.